Hello everyone, this is Crowfire Gaming. I'm here to share my guide for what I consider to be the best all-rounder I've played. This is an Inquisitor using Ethereal Knives as a primary skill, featuring explosions, good map clear, and quite respectable single target as well. You can see here I'm level 98, which means I'm obviously quite tanky. You level fast when you just don't die. This build has a few mechanical interactions going on. I'm going to go over those hopefully as fast as I can. I've tried to record this video 2 other times and both have gone over an hour, so I'm going to try to cut it down a lot. So I'm going to go fast. So this build primarily utilizes Ethereal Knives. In order to get damage, I run Battle Mage. Battle Mage is an Inquisitor Ascendancy point that makes your added damage to your main skill, in this case Ethereal Knives, the same as your main hand weapon, which for me is the Volcanus Dagger, which is good fizz damage, good fire damage, and gives you some crit chance when you have Avatar of Fire, almost 200% crit chance. I do have Avatar of Fire, so it's giving me a lot of benefit and a lot of flat added damage to Ethereal Knives. That's great. Then I'm also using Fanaticism. Because I'm using a dagger, I can use Whirling Blades as a movement skill, which means that every 4 seconds, as long as I've attacked 4 times in the past 4 seconds, I get 75% more cast speed, reduced mana cost, and area of effect. Now, this is fantastic because even though it can be a bit clunky sometimes, it isn't up 100% of the time, pretty much no matter what. You can burst down bosses in less than 4 seconds, which is how long Fanaticism works. So it's actually excellent for bossing, and it's great for clear because you just Whirling Blades cast, Whirling Blades cast, Whirling Blades cast. It's almost always up. You get the AoE bonus for your explosions from SNS Gentle Touch, which otherwise AoE doesn't matter because you don't invest in it because we're a projectile damage build. But you do get AoE. The more cast speed is just 75% more damage when it's up, which is obviously insane. Finally, I'm using Righteous Providence for a lot of global critical strike chance. I'll share a tiny bit more about this in a second. And then for the last ascendancy point, it doesn't really matter. You can go Sanctuary or Augury of Penitence. Both are fine. Both. This makes you a little bit more tanky. This one kind of makes you more tanky in a roundabout way because it gives you more regen. I just don't have a way to reliably create Consecrated Ground, but if you do, this node might be better, especially because it negates curses. Good. So finally, I'm using Leadership's Price. Leadership's Price is a fantastic amulet that's very underused, and not many people know about it. It's a unique amulet that comes from the Twins Contract and Heist. It can roll between -3 to +3 all elemental resistances. For this build, because I'm using Melding of the Flesh, the new unique jewel, you actually only need to increase your cold resistance because Melding of the Flesh makes it so that your elemental resistances are capped by your highest maximum elemental resistances instead. This means I only care about cold res to scale with Aegis Aurora, which gives you +5 max cold res. You run Purity of Ice. Where is it? Purity of Ice, which gives you +5 here, plus some more from Aura effect. And you get some on your amulet. You're capped. You're at 90%. I'm actually at 92% max cold res. 90% is the hard cap, but that means on minus maximum res maps, you actually still have some resistances. I anoint Disciple of the Slaughter because I get frenzy charges on all my gear. This gives me quite a bit of attack and cast speed because of Whirling Blades you want attack speed for anyway. So that's my anointment. If you want a defensive option, you can probably go Foresight. It's a bit more expensive, but you're already spending a Tainted Oil because this amulet comes corrupted. The main part of this amulet, though, is not the cold res, but that it gives you alternate ailment conflux as long as your 2 highest attributes are equal. That means Scorch, Brittle, and Sap. Scorch is -30% all res on enemies, Brittle is 15% base crit against enemies, and Sap is -20% damage inflicted from enemies. So fantastic nodes. You get Conflux, which means since we're only dealing fire damage from Avatar of Fire, Conflux doesn't care about that. You apply all the ailments, whether it's fire, cold, or lightning ailments, just based on your fire damage. So this is great. Using SNS Gentle Touch and Leadership's Price together, if you can get Brittle, your explosions from SNS Gentle Touch actually can inflict those ailments. So that means that my explosions are inflicting Brittle to give 15% base crit. That means that the explosions can proliferate because actually the explosions have base 0 crit chance, but with base 15 now, and because I get over 300 global crit from Righteous Providence, 200 global crit almost from Volcanus, It means you basically are crit capped, guaranteed for your Asenath's Gentle Touch explosions. That is incredible. It means that your explosions can proliferate, which is the main idea for any explosion build, and you get the area of effect from fanaticism. Now, again, this isn't up 100% of the time. If you really want to do a map-focused version of this build, you can. But again, this is an all-rounder for bossing and mapping without a lot of swapping in between. Good. So that's primarily how the build functions. I'm using a Crown of the Inward Eye because I'm running a lot of armor. I enjoy the energy shield on this too, and it gives me some damage from the transfigurations. I bought this helm for about 1 Exalted Orb, not very expensive, even with the corruption, and I don't even have a helm enchant, so it can get better. I'm using a Chevron's Wrappings because I'm low life. This one is like a 17x upgrade for 14% more damage. You don't need this. When I run my test map and in all the videos I showed, I wasn't using this. I just wanted to push the build, so I ended up getting this one. When I run a sample map here, I have a Hydra map I'm going to run. I'm just not going to run Righteous Fire because that should counter any damage or any bonuses I've gotten from this and from using the Forbidden Flesh and Forbidden Flame Jewels. This is pretty much best in slot for any Templar build that can utilize this, but Sanctuary of Thought is absolutely insane. It's the Hierophant node that gives you 25% mana reservation efficiency. It gives you 50% less mana cost of skills, and it gives you, what's the last one? 20% of mana as extra energy shield. So I benefit from all of those things. It's fantastic for solving mana problems, but it's not outrageously fantastic, meaning like in order to give up 2 jewels, you lose defense and you lose a lot of offense. Using these gives you only defense. Now it does give me offense because of the mana reservation. I can then run Vitality, which means I can then run Righteous Fire more reliably, but I'm just not going to run Righteous Fire in the test, and you can see the damage basically without these jewels and without the Corrupted Chevron's Wrappings. Otherwise, I use 2 large cluster jewels, both with Mage Hunter and Conjured Wall, and then some other third notable here. That'll give me spell block cap. I run this Herald node because I'm running 2 Heralds. This gives Herald buff effect, which is absolutely great for Herald of Purity and Herald of Ash. Otherwise, you want 1 source of Pierce. I get it on a medium cluster jewel with Repeater, which is very good. Projectile damage scales EK damage, and then attacking cast speed is great for Whirling Blades and casting. Good, that's pretty much it. Just for reference, by the way, on how surprisingly small using these very expensive like 25x combo or jewels give me. I'm not even using the mana reservation efficiency of skills node here. For the longest time when I did Feared, when I did all the content, I was just using, instead of aura effect, I was using mana reservation efficiency here. But eventually I made the swap because I could. And if you can't, because you can't afford these jewels, totally fine. This build should cost around 20x to feel very comfortable doing pretty much all the bosses. Feared, 20x might be okay if it's an easy Feared, but if you want to start rolling your Feared to be a bit more dangerous, you're going to need to upgrade this past 20x. Yeah, I'm using some Megalomaniacs, but they just give me random stuff. So I needed some extra attack block to cap my attack block. I get it here. I need some spell damage leeches energy shield. I get it here. This is just generic damage. Same on the other side. Some armor fizz damage, some energy shield, and then some aura effect. Not specific, just short, whatever you need. If you need mana, you can use 50% reservation efficiency for determination or for purity of elements. That's great. Finally, I do run, because I run Righteous Fire, I run a Fire Cluster Jewel with Wrapped in Flame and Master of Fire. This is how I get my exposure. And then if you are running Righteous Fire, Wrapped in Flame is absolute best notable to have. It gives you some fire damage and cover in ash when hit, which is 20% more damage, basically. It's absolutely insane. Finally, if you ever need Leech as ES, extra resistances, extra effective non-damaging ailments if you're farming Delirium or something like that, you can run change this master for 1 regret orb. You can do Uber Theory, all your reflect maps there, or you could get your Leech's energy shield. I don't have that. I don't need that since I get in other sources, so I just grab exposure minus 18% all resistances, which is 18% pen. Very good. I do run a Lethal Pride. Lethal Pride gives you a lot of strength. You need strength to be equal to your int in order to use Leadership's Price and in order to get the most benefit out of Righteous Providence. So I need extra strength because I get a lot of int here from traveling on the tree. This gives you a lot of strength in the travel nodes. You can see +2, +4, and then they're very cheap. They're like 15 chaos orbs. You just buy 10 and then sell 9 and just pick the best one. It'll change the notables. Here I get 10% reduced extra damage from crits, which is great defensively. Double damage is amazing. Fizz's extra fire is very good. Yeah, so this one's pretty good for me. I use it. You get strength. You get other notable things. Fantastic. This Thread of Hope is actually very underutilized. I'm surprised no one else really uses it in this socket, but it reaches everything you need it to. Use a very large ring, Thread of Hope. You grab Glancing Blows, Avatar of Fire, Magmatic Strikes, Born to Fight, Iron Will, and Precision. All of these are very beneficial to the build. You get some of the best nodes there are. And if you're life-based, you can also get Discipline and Training and Tireless and almost all of these cost and life nodes here. It is absolutely amazing. So I use it here. You grab all the 3 keystones that are your biggest damage and defense upgrades. This gives you strength and a really high fizz damage, which affects EK and attack speed. Great. This one gives you attack and cast speed and dex, which you need to run EK. You can also use a not lethal pride. What's it called? The yellow, the Marikath jewel, can it give you projectile damage and it gives you dex. We need dex on the build too, so that's a totally viable option if you use those. Brutal Restraint is what it's called. If you use those, try to get like 60% projectile damage is probably better than what I have. I think that's everything. I do have a Watcher's Eye. It's not the best Watcher's Eye in the world. It's not super expensive, but it's good. I really like the chaos resistance while affected by purity of elements. That saves a lot of problems with chaos damage, especially if you're doing Chayula for the Feared. I get some block from Discipline, but you could get it on a Megalomaniac or just from these nodes. Look, plus 4% chance to block spell damage right here. I'm not taking them. That's equivalent to this. So it's 1 passive point that I'm saving. So again, do not be intimidated by any of this. It is a very accessible build. The hardest part is balancing your attributes. You see, you need to have balanced attributes to maintain your buffs to have conflicts. Maintaining attributes can cost a couple Divine Orbs. Divines are very cheap this league, but the main thing is that you actually don't need expensive gear to do it, but you just need specific gear. So you can see here, I get Strength and Dex, Energy Shield, and Frenzy Charge on a ring. Your rings are going to give you a lot of attributes. You could get Strength on your belt too. But once you get, T1, T2 Strength Dex roll on one ring, the other ring is really easy. This one just gives me 37 Dex and some resistances and a Frenzy Charge. I think this ring cost me like 5 Chaos. This one is not much more. You can get gear extremely cheaply. Yeah, like this is a very cheap, accessible build. I want to emphasize that. It does require you to balance your attributes, which can be annoying. It can make you, if you want to do one upgrade, you need to do a couple upgrades, but it's not bad at all, especially if you do what I did, which is you do all of your attribute pathing first, and then for your last 20 levels, you just fill out your cluster jewels. So for example, you path through all of the attribute nodes that you'll ever take, ever, and then you focus on filling it out. Now, obviously, you can take damage nodes as you're leveling, but I mean, like, by the time you're level 70, when you're in Blood Aqueducts and you hit level 70 and you want to equip all your in-game gear, you want to have all of these travel nodes picked out. And then all you need to do is buy the items you need to balance your attributes once, and you probably will never have to do it again. I don't think I've ever needed to adjust my attributes, except that I also wanted to balance for Wise Oak, which is a pain in the ass, and I don't know if I recommend it. I was just naturally within 8 points of each other resistance-wise anyway, so I ended up using some catalysts and some divines to, like, make it work. So that's the only time I had to, like, adjust my gear. But you can see, gear very cheap. These boots cost me, I think, 1 Exalted Orb for the suffixes, which are perfect triple T1 resistances, and then you just can use the new Eldritch currency to reroll the prefixes till you get some Energy Shield. You craft on Onslaught because Onslaught is amazing, and then you just use the new Eldritch currency in order to give yourself action speed is the best one from the Searing Exarch, and you just spam the small ones because they're super cheap until you get it, and then you can use Orb of Conflict. For the Eater of Worlds, They're all kind of useless, to be honest with you. Physics or Fire is probably the best one, but it's not a lot of damage. It's like 3% more damage, 4% more damage. It's not nothing, but it's not great. Good. For my links, I am running. You do need 1 Enlighten for the build. Level 3, actually, you don't even need level 4, just level 3. So you need 1, which I think is 2 Exalted Orbs. You use 1 because you need to be able to link Purity of Ice and Discipline with your Arrogant support to reserve your life. This gives the increased aura effect to your Purity of Ice, which is amazing because it gives you that maximum cold res, and to Discipline, which gives you ES. So that's very good. So you need 1 level 3 Enlighten, run there. In my helmet, I am running another Enlighten, but again, this is endgame. I'm not taking the mana reservation efficiency of skills here, and I just wasn't running Vitality for the longest time because I wasn't running Righteous Fire. But I run Herald of Ash, Purity of Elements, and Determination. And then I run Vitality, Endgame Upgrade, Herald of Purity, and Defiance Banner. So all of these, great. You do need to run an Eternal Mana Flask, or an Enduring Eternal Mana Flask to maintain your mana. But because when you're using Fanatic charges, you get 75% reduced cost, it's very manageable. Whirling Blades, faster attacks is my main setup. Sniper's Mark for single target. If you want to use Sniper's Mark while you're mapping, which is good for Delirium, is good if you need help with map bosses or just slightly faster, then you need to spec into Whispers of Doom, but it's only 3 points. I used it for 95% of this character's playtime because it just makes mapping easy. You throw Sniper's Mark on the boss and you annihilate him. You need it because Asenath's Gentle Touch applies Temporal Chains on hit, which overrides whatever curse you apply normally. So you do need 2 curses in the build. There is some wild variation in the build, I think, where you run... you don't run Shavs, you run a normal chest, you have half your life reserved, and you have max chaos resistance, and you just hope you don't die to chaos damage. And you get +1 curse on the chest and some other great stats instead of this. Chevron's is basically useless, to be honest. Like, it's not good defense, it doesn't give you any damage, it's not great, but it does protect you from chaos damage. So unless you run an extra aura or 2. But yeah, so because I'm Aegis Aurora, I wanted to be protected from chaos, but maybe you don't need that. You could even run Course Getting Elixir and have it be up most of the time and probably be fine. But that's a different build variation. Good. One thing you can do is you can have a glove swap when you're actually farming bosses. Like if you have a bunch of Shapers or Elders or whatever saved up, throw on an alternate pair of gloves. You want +2 AoE, which is an Unveil. I bought these gloves for 7 Chaos Orbs for reference. So again, don't look at them, see all the stats, and be like, wow, that's crazy. It is not. I did apply the influence myself. Unnerve enemies is the absolute best you can get, and you can get on the lowest tier. So just spam the lowest tier of, Searing Exarch until you get Unnerve, and then just do whatever for Eater of Worlds. +2 AoE, you do need the same intelligence roll on your gloves and on your Asenaths because it gives you int and you need to keep your int balanced. A bit annoying, but you'll manage. The attack and cast speed while focused is actually amazing because you just hit that while you have fanaticism and you get incredible attack speed. Then just some energy shield and you're good. Again, these are 7 chaos gloves that I added influence to and crafted energy shield, and I think I probably had to throw 2 or 3 divines on it to get the intelligence exactly the number I wanted. But yeah, that's about it. You don't need a corrupted Asenath's Touch. That's luxury. The +2 AoE gem corruption or +2 aura gem corruption just improves your Herald of Ice and your Discipline aura. You don't need it. You'll be at like 88, 89% max cold res, max all res without it. But if you can get it, you can get it. And eventually I paid for it. Good. Okay, I think that was everything. That was a lot more manageable time-wise than my other explanations. But yeah, let me just show you a map real quick. If you do end up running Righteous Fire, I'd recommend you take of the Urchin or Dowsing Flask, which removes Ignite and Burning, and put the enchant used when you take a savage hit, because it means that when you need to regen the most, your Righteous Fire turns off. It's very good. I'm just going to run a Hydra map real quick. It's going to be pretty empty if I don't put any mods on it, I guess. But it's got Shaper, so I'll just do a blank. I think it's a 90% quality, 90% quality map. So we'll run it, and you can see the build in action in real time, and I'm not making stuff up. I can also demonstrate to you how the asanas work. So you can see that it chains explosions. So I can shoot up, I can shoot exactly there, and it killed all these mobs.
My mana is spent.
See, here they are attacking me. Well, I actually kind of auto-targeted them. But, yeah, things explode. It's fun. So let me run this map like I normally would, so you can kind of get a feel of it. Oh, I did take the shrine. Okay, let me resist the shrine so that you don't get polluted with god tier shrine mapping. Yeah, I'm not going to turn on Righteous Fire, so this entire map, I have, what, 39% less damage, plus Divergent, which gives you an extra 20% increased spell damage. Sorry, I'm lagging a bit from the recording, but it should be okay. There's a Tornado. Tornado is good. It gives you basically 40% more damage per second while it's active. It does clear legions pretty well because of the explosion. But Tornado gives you 40% more damage per second while it's active. Mine's active for like 7 seconds or something. But it's a little confusing. The math on it is kind of weird. So it's whatever, right? Your mileage may vary. I quite like it if you're doing a legion or you're doing a boss. It can target enemies that you're not looking at, so it can keep certain enemies under control. I mean, those are worth like what, an alt shard. I'm not gonna pick them up. You can see the explosions are pretty satisfying. Sorry for the bit of lag. I've got a tiny bit of a delay. My computer's not the best, but it's not bad. But yeah, the delay between me shooting and moving is making this map clear take slightly longer than it normally would. But you know what? It's just fine. You can see how Ethereal Knives, you do kind of need to aim in the direction of the enemies. But I only have one pierce, remember. Like, no chain, no pierce, and this is how much the clear proliferates. So you do need to aim. A bit of a downside. If you had the space to fit the Nova Jewel, the Ring of Blaze Jewel, you could easily get a corrupted one with corrupted one with the corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you. Here I'm going to charge up to 3 and then wait till it respawns. Where are you? So now I'm at 4 and we're going to hit it. And there my Guardian's Aid procced. And there the boss is dead. And that's with probably less damage than I had when I was on a 20x budget. So yeah, that's the build. Pretty cheap, pretty good. I'm actually over-capped on max res with all my stuff because you can get +3 max cold res on your amulet for dirt cheap because you can get -3 on the other stats and it's not going to matter. Flask with gain charge when hit is great. I do run a Chemist's Alchemist Flask. Chemist is great because I have the gain of flask charge when you take a critical strike mod on my belt. It's a hunter mod. You can guarantee it if you do locker suffixes, where suffixes cannot be changed, and then reroll crit on a hunter Stygian using Harvest. But ideally I would want this with reduced curse effect and gain charges when hit, but it gives me enough chaos res that I'm pretty much capped chaos res if you use the Watcher's Eye. But yeah, that's the build. Hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, let me know. If you have any suggestions, let me know. But yeah, hope somebody finds this useful. Thanks for watching.
have time to gather my will.